I've got a single shot protect automatic doorbell, semi-artillery. I got a new thing of sawdust on a rigorous all things you've never seen. I'm gonna take it to a heavy metal store, maybe coming after me. Cause I got the right to defend what's mine in the face of tyranny.
Hello my gun-toting friends and welcome to the Average Joe Gun Show. On today's gun show we're going to be discussing the Luger Pistol Parabellum 1908. It's the official name. Very distinct look and very recognizable. Even though Bill Ruger, with an R, invented a .22 pistol that looked just like it in 1949 called the Ruger Standard, but it was Luger with an L that in 1898 designed this. He was working for the Deutsche Waffen Munitionsfabriken at the time, a German weapons munitions factory. And it was produced from 1898 through 1949 by many manufacturers and stayed in service in different countries until the 1970s. It was first chambered in the .30 Luger, but in 1901 it was chambered in the 9mm Parabellum. But before we get too far, it is unloaded. The 9mm round was invented by George Luger in 1901 when they started chambering it in this pistol. And it's now the most popular handgun cartridge in the world due to the manageable recoil and reasonable stopping power for self-defense, and it's inexpensive also, so fun for at the range when you're just blinking and pew-pewing away. In 1901, at the same time the German Army was testing this pistol, DWM sent 2 pistols to the US military for a test. And they passed the test, so they sent 1,000 more for military trials. They passed the military trials, but they were highly unpopular with the troops. I would figure the troops were still holding on to their revolvers, and they didn't like the cumbersome action of the Luger. So in 1905, they were all recalled. But then in 1907, DWM tried again to sell them to the US military in .45 ACP. But the pistol, even though the pistol was satisfactory, the ammunition production was not. So without a sufficient supply of .45 ACP, DWM withdrew from testing in the US military. The Swiss had adopted the Luger in 1900 and stayed in service until 1949. It wasn't until 1908 that the German Army adopted the pistol, the P08 9mm, and the early Lugers went through many design changes internally and externally. But by 1908, the barrel had been shortened to 3.9 inches, and the internal flat spring was changed to a recoil spring in between the grip panels. And the grip safety was removed. It had a grip safety like a 1911. And they finally removed that in 1908. And the toggle lock knee joint was improved for better movement on that. Spring pressure holds the toggle lock and the barrel forward. Under recoil, the barrel moves to the rear, which starts the toggle lock moving backwards. When the barrel stops on the frame, the toggle lock continues to move. I've got dummy rounds in this to show you this action. So the barrel moves back, it locks on the frame, the toggle lock comes back, ejects the spent round, and if it wasn't a dummy round, it would load one into the chamber, like so. But when the last round is fired, the toggle lock comes back and locks open. If that was under full recoil, it would have ejected right up over my head. But here is the extractor, which acts like a loaded chamber indicator. When there's a live round in there, it sets up a little bit. The knee joint locks back like so. If you remove it, you can just pull back and let it down. When you're shooting a Luger, the extractor is dead center on the top, so when you're firing, the brass ejects and it hits you on the top of the head or in the face, or sometimes it'll pop up over your head.
The bullets are hitting the top of my head.
Yep, they do. it has a knee joint action, which comes up, locks up, like so. That's the action on the Luger. That's how you charge the weapon if you had a full magazine in. The trigger on it is a 3/4 moon. Let's see if you can see this coming down. Can you see this coming down? Yes. It's an interesting trigger on an interesting action. This is your take up. You can see the whole trigger move there. And that is your wall and your brake. Do that one more time. Ball, brake. The sight picture on a Luger is microscopic. Let me show you the U-notch here. I had to put a piece of white paper up so you can almost see how tiny the back U-notch is to see the front sight. This is basically a point and shoot weapon. Very close range. I mean, you can bullseye target farther away, but you really gotta pay attention. A big difference versus a modern 3-dot. As you can see, a little bit better sight picture on today's pistols. There was a time period where people were still single-hand shooting, slowing down like at a duel instead of the aggressive dual-handed shooting we do today. So people were a little bit more conscientious of what their sights were doing. Even though this was a single-hand shooting pistol, it took 2 hands to operate to get it unloaded and reloaded, because you can't reach the magazine release like on modern pistols with your thumb, even if you break your grip. You have to come in, hit it with your thumb, and then your magazine has a pull tab or pull button on the bottom of it. Interesting thing is, this is a early 23 and later magazine with a late 22 pistol, but it has matching numbers. The magazines before this were not aluminum, they were made out of carved wood. Let me rephrase that. It is an aluminum or carved wood plug in a stamped steel magazine with a follower that you had to press down to load it, which is very cumbersome to load. It is a pain in the butt to load a Luger magazine. You have to just slowly pull down on this loading notch or button, whatever you want to call it, because if you don't, the rounds will straighten out and flip up, and then you have to unload the whole thing and start over like that. So I guess if you had this in the war, you better make sure you had plenty of mags loaded up ahead of time, because you weren't going to reload real fast. Like trying to load a revolver. Terrible. After putting a couple hundred rounds through this pistol, I understand why the US military stuck with their revolvers until the 1911 came out. It is ridiculously hard to reload this magazine. You could reload a revolver twice before you could get this thing loaded and get this thing back in action. Another reason I say this is a two-handed operation because of the safety. The safety can barely get your thumb on it when you need to operate it, but you can flip it with your other thumb. It says Geschart for secure, and that's how you operate it. It's a very stiff safety. But as you can watch, there's the safety bar that actuates on the side of the pistol. The way this operates is when the safety is engaged or pulled back, when you pull the trigger, the safety bar is in the way of the action. If you disengage the safety, the action can push out sideways past the safety bar and fire. The Geschart safety stamping in uppercase was from 1908 and later. There is a N with a crown over it, which shows a nitro-proof barrel, which was in production after 1920. The aluminum bottom magazine plug was from 1923 to 1945. The DWN markings on the bolt was from 1900 to 1922, which was the last year of production for this model there, which this was a 23 magazine. That's why it leads me to believe that this was a late 23 transition to or late 22 transition to 23 model. And it does not say made in Germany anywhere on this pistol. And the commercial sales models of these pistols that did not leave Germany did not say made in Germany on them, because everybody already knew they were made in Germany. That DWM. Machining tolerances on these pistols is incredibly tight. The lockup is superior to anything of nowadays, except for early 1911s, of course. No play, no wobble. The slop that we see in pistols today does not exist. Listen to this lockup. That's tight. Luger was used in about 35 wars. The ones we're most familiar with is World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War, which had very limited use, and even a couple used in Operation Urgent Fury in 1983. So a run from 1900 to 1983, that's a good service life. But now they're just collector's items. And if you need to get one, you could probably get one for about the price of a new Staccato. It is a fun pistol to shoot. It's a little awkward due to the grip angle. There's something about that area of Europe that likes weird grip angles for their pistols. Not a fan. So the part you've all been waiting for, how does it shoot? Luger P08, the original, 115 grain at 15 yards. Luger P08, 124 grain at 15 yards. Luger P08, 147 grain, 15 yards. Luger 115 grain. So one-handed or two-handed, this Luger shoots a little bit to the left. Not a big deal. On a 5-inch target, you still put somebody down. Well, being that it's a collector's item and it's a 1922 model, I only put a couple hundred rounds through it. Not only due to the age, but also as fun as it is to shoot an old weapon like this, not this model being in the war, but ones like this in World War II, which this is known for, it's not that much fun to shoot. Honestly, it's awkward, it's cumbersome. It is neat to shoot a piece of history, but it's not something you want to run and gun with. It is a beautiful pistol and it's a fantastic piece of history. If you ever get a chance to shoot one, I highly recommend you do it. But then clean it well, oil it well, and put it back in the museum box. Well, that's all I've got for you on today's gun show. But don't forget to eat right, exercise, and like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. Comment down below if you've got a Luger or if you've shot a Luger. What's your opinion on how it shoots and if it should be stuck back in the museum? But until next time, go out and get some training. And if you're in the North Colorado area and you need to get a concealed carry permit, contact me. I'd be happy to help with that. Till next time, go shoot something. A big difference versus a modern 3-dot. I just ripped my paper. That's awesome.